Alright, hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode of this album series that I'm doing, my 40 favorite albums of all time. No caveats, no rules to how I'm going to construct this countdown. It's just full stop my favorite 40 albums with all my biases in place. There can be tons of different albums from the same artist. There can be albums from different decades, different genres. This is just my favorite albums that have touched me and meant a lot to me throughout my life. I did the first episode, which was albums number 40 through 31. Many of them I put behind me on the wall, so you can get a sense of what's come already on the show. If you haven't seen that episode, I'd consider jumping back to that one to kind of get that list before moving forward with this one, where I'm going to talk about albums 30 through 21. So I'm excited to get into it. My bias is obviously modern progressive rock. That's my favorite thing, so that's mostly what's on this list, with a couple classics kind of thrown in that I find especially important to my journey as a prog lover, as a music lover. So let's get into it. Number 30 is an interesting one, so I'm going to move aside and let the albums kind of showcase by my head, and we'll get into it. All right, for this first one, this is actually probably the only one on the list that I don't have a physical copy of yet. I'm getting a physical copy. I joined their Kickstarter campaign, so that should be coming later this year. But this is last year's Album of the Year winner, Moron Police and Pachenko at number 30. I know this is probably big recency bias to put this on the list already, but I absolutely love this record, and I was obsessed with it last year. I continue to be obsessed with it. This is a band from Norway. They had a great album called A Boat on the Sea, which I was really obsessed with, but it was very short, and I was always wanting more, wanting a longer album and more from that style, and they delivered in a big way with Pachenko. The band was kind of fraught with a little bit of trouble between albums. They lost their drummer, which was a really sad thing, but they pushed forward and released an album that just is so vibrant and fun, just like the album cover art is, and there's a lot of pop influence, obviously, but they do it in a very quirky, eclectic way. It has moments that remind me of some of my favorite quirky prog bands, kind of Gentle Giant-esque, Zappa-esque, maybe more modern reference like Beardfish, Major Parkinson. I just love their colorful, zany style, and that it's very catchy and accessible. But like on the title track Pachenko, it just goes all over the place and full-blown like prog metal chaos and craziness in that track. But I think it's very accessible to people just wanting to get their feet wet in the genre, and it's just a fun, bright album, and I'm really proud of the guys that they crafted something so special to make my list here at number 30. At number 29, another album that I couldn't track down, but I know I have on CD in my collection. I believe the case or the album insert kind of got destroyed a little bit, so I don't think it's in my CD collection proper. I'm hopeful that it'll come out on vinyl soon, so then I'll be able to get a more adequate copy of it. But this is Moon Safari and their album Bloom Jude from 2008. This is my number 29 pick. Moon Safari are one of my all-time favorite bands, and I think this album really showcases them at their peak. It's a double album, so there's a lot of material here, and what's remarkable is often with double albums you feel like there's some kind of like filler material that's not quite as solid, that they could have trimmed it down into a single disc and made it better. But to me, everything on this album is essential, and every track is really beautifully composed. They're a symphonic prog band from Sweden. They have these lush vocal harmonies and arrangements that evoke classic Beach Boys, but a more Yes-like symphonic prog backdrop. They start with an a cappella piece called Constant Bloom, which has become one of their standards and staples in their live set. Methuselah's Children is an epic that just goes in a lot of directions and is just bright and fun and positive and joyful. That's what I love in music. From the Moron Police pick now to this one, I love joyful, vibrant music that's positive, makes me uplifted and happy. And this album does that in spades. There's a big epic in the second half, other half of the sky, which is just remarkable, and they just know how to construct these big epic pieces, but also there's a lot of smaller tracks and some cool a cappella moments and vocal, theatrics and things that they do. And I just love their whole aesthetic. I think they're one of the best modern prog bands in existence. And this album is really what sold me on them in the first place. I remember getting this album when I was like in college, and I was like listening to this nonstop, walking around campus and just like really enjoying life and the springtime and the summertime. And I just thought this really brought a whole lot of joy to my life at that period of time. So I'm really grateful to the album and to the band for bringing that light and joy into my life. All right, now into the ones that I actually have like physical copies to show off. At number 28, I have Gentle Giant's The Power and the Glory. So we're going into a classic record from 1974, eclectic prog from the UK, of course. The Shulman brothers, Kerry Minier, Gary Green, John Weathers on drums. This to me is the classic lineup, and it's hard. Gentle Giant's one of my all-time favorite bands. They're one of the prog bands that really got me into the genre, and probably my dad's favorite prog band. But it's hard to pick what album to represent them on this list. And I always come back to The Power and the Glory just because of its consistency, and it's because it's conceptual and thematic, and I like how it all hangs together as an album, whereas most of their other records that I really enjoy are more just really great disparate songs that, don't really have a connecting link between them. I love Octopus, I love In a Glass House, I love Freehand. Those would all be like contenders as well. But I settled on Power and the Glory. I love Proclamation, how it begins in this kind of funky classic style. I love the moment where it kind of boils down to like each individual instrument and keeps building layer upon layer till the band comes and kicks back in. So Sincere is such a unique track. I know it's maybe a bit polarizing, but I just think it's just a fascinating listen. Aspirations is one of their most beautiful ballads. And then you get stuff like Cogs and Cogs, which is just really intricate, cool prog rock with those cool vocal harmonies and things. I feel like songs like this really inspired like Spock's Beard and Neil Morse's Gentle Giant tribute type stuff. And it ends with Valedictory, which is kind of a darker, more sinister take on Proclamation. So I find this record really fascinating. I've always loved it. And I like the concept, kind of this, person rising to power and then getting corrupted and then everything kind of falling apart throughout their reign as a ruler. And I think that's a really fascinating concept that's relevant in our world today even. So really fascinating record, one that I've always held in high esteem, and Gentle Giant are just one of the best in the genre for my money. I know they can be somewhat polarizing to certain people. Some people just don't get it and don't care for it, but to me they're one of the premier bands that deserve praise and attention and are just so cool. So there you go, Power and the Glory by Gentle Giant at 28. Next, I have one of the bands that Gentle Giant inspired. I just barely mentioned them, Spock's Beard, and I've put Beware of Darkness here at number 27. It was, once again, really hard to pick which Spock's Beard records would be represented on this list. And I wanted to pick one representative from like their early catalog, from, The Light, this album, Kindness of Strangers, and Day for Night, which I consider like kind of their formative albums and ones that really meant a lot to me as I was coming into the modern prog scene. And to me, this is the one that really solidified the band as like one of my favorite, if not my favorite band of all time. The Light was the first full record that I heard from them, and I liked it a lot. I was obsessed with it and thought it was amazing. But I feel like this one, the band dialed in even better and like kind of came into their own. It sounds a little bit more polished, the production values are a little bit better, and I feel like the tracks are a bit punchier and more fun overall. So it's a really tough one, and Kindness of Strangers is also kind of along the same, I feel the same way about it as I do about this record. But I remember hearing The Doorway in particular and just being won over by Spock's Beard. Love that piano, like cool intro, leading into a really catchy, cool song, but with prog flourishes all around it. Thoughts was the first song I ever heard from Spock's Beard, and what initially got me interested because of how much it sounded like Gentle Giant. I immediately showed my dad, because my dad had shown me like his favorite classic prog artists, and I was off on my own trying to discover new stuff. And when I found this, I immediately had to show it to him, and that's when we went out and bought The Light. But I subsequently bought all of their records and those first 6 Boxbeard records are all in the canon of like 6 of my favorite records of all time, so I had to represent them well. I already put 5 on the list last week. Beware of Darkness here. There may be one more coming up later on the list in a future week. So just love the band, love their aesthetic. They're excellent musicians, and I love the playful spirit and vibe. And Walking on the Wind is one of my favorite Boxbeard tracks ever. I think it's an underrated classic. Time Has Come is a fun epic. And so it's just a great thing. It starts with a George Harrison cover, which is an amazing way to start the record. So love the band, love this record, love Neal Morse. And so it has to be included on the list somewhere. It's really grown over time too. I don't know if I would have put this like as my top of the early Boxbeard records if you would have asked me like 10, 15 years ago, but here it is here, and I love it to death. It's a great record. All right, at number 26, maybe this is a bit surprising, I don't know, but this is Thank You Scientist and their album Terraformer that came out in 2019. Crossover prog from the US. A fantastic group that I feel like really solidified their powers on this record. This is their 3rd full-length record. And I love their previous record, Maps from Non-Existent Places, Stranger Heads Prevail. But this is where it all comes together to me. It's a really long record. It's very lengthy. But I absolutely adore every track on it. It has a couple of true classics. I love how they kind of blend some more funkier aesthetics. They have horns, they have violin, they have all these cool instruments that bring this kind of new, unique sound, but they keep it fresh and vibrant and sounding youthful. Which I appreciate. Their vocalist is very unique as well, has this kind of almost poppier side to his voice, but it works in this context. I really love Son of a Serpent. I really love Everyday Ghosts. Those are 2 of my favorite Thank You Scientist tracks. I also love the whole instrumental track, which just is basically a showcase for all the instrumentalists. That's called Chromology. And there's so many cool tracks. Like every track, when it comes on, I'm like, oh yeah, I love this one too. I just really love their quirky aesthetic, but they don't sacrifice just catchiness and fun in their music as well. Love Geronimo, Life of Vermin, Anchor, just all these tracks coalesce into an album that really impressed me and put them on the map for me of like one of my top tier favorite artists. So if you like kind of the more quirky Zappa-esque kind of prog, but like it to be a bit accessible and fun, with some funky bits to it as well. This is a band to check out. Thank You Scientist, Terraformer at number 26. Number 25, I have another favorite of my, of course, these are all favorites, so, obviously this is a favorite of mine. This is Echoland's album, their self-titled record from 2012. Actually, their second self-titled record. They had a previous self-titled earlier in their career, but I love this record. It's 8 tracks, and each one is unique and cool and inspired. Echoland has been one of my favorite bands for a long time. I love their early stuff from the 90s, but this really brought a maturity to their sound, I feel like. It starts with Island, which is like a 16-minute epic, which, evokes back to me. They have an album that is like just one long track over the whole album that has this kind of aesthetic. But this one, it's a bit more mature. It's a bit more song driven and has that bit of like Americana that they can infuse into their sound that I really enjoy. And they have a couple shorter tracks, Head Right and Locust to Bethlehem, but I love all these tracks. There's just some really gorgeous melodies, moments that they really just let things breathe and, bring in this cool orchestration and elements that really beef out their sound as well. And it just makes for a really beautiful record that I just fell in love with and continue to love to this day. 2012's Echoland, they're self-titled, so check it out if you're not familiar with Echoland. I think this is a good starting point. Their earlier stuff like As the World is a great starting point as well. But I like their newer stuff, and their newest album is also along the lines of this. It's just as good too. Time Silent Radio. Check that out as well. Of course, we have to keep going on the Neal Morse train here, so I've got to have Question Mark on my list here at number 24. This came out in 2005, Symphonic Prog from the US. And Neal Morse assembles a whole host of guests to be on this record. You've got Alan Morse, Roy Stoltz, Steve Hackett, Jordan Rudess, as well as, of course, Randy George and Mike Portnoy, who are always with Neal on his solo records. It's a cool conceptual record about the ancient temples and how nowadays the temple can be your heart and within you. I think that's a really cool message. But it's just really expressive cool prog music all the way throughout, and every track kind of bleeds into the next. There's some great instrumental moments. There's just some real fireworks playing from those different guests. There's like this cool trading soloing between, I believe it's Jordan Rudess and Alan Morse and In the Fire. I just really love this album with my whole heart. I think it's during the peak of Neil's creative powers. And it was cool because it's a somewhat shorter record compared to some of the previous ones that came before it. So it feels like it kind of zooms by and is a quick listen, but it still packs all the same punches that Neil Morse is known for, with a big epic conclusion that is really fascinating and beautiful to listen to. So I really respect this album with my full heart. It's one that I absolutely adore and had to have on this list. So here it is, Neil Morse's Question Mark at number 24. At number 23, I have Frost and their album Million Town, which came out in 2006, neo-prog from the United Kingdom. This is an incredible lineup of musicians: John Mitchell on guitar and vocals, John Boyes on guitars, Jim Godfrey on keyboards and alto vocals, John Jewett on bass, and Andy Edwards on drums. And this immediately struck me as something really special in neo-prog, and something a little bit different than what had come before. I feel like Jim Godfrey kind of inserted this cool, like, sleek production value to the album, and it feels modern and sleek and fun, but also has those classic kind of instrumental fireworks and great keyboard playing. It starts with an instrumental, Hyperventilate, which is just frosty and beautiful and just goes through so many different movements throughout its 7-minute runtime. You have a couple shorter, more accessible tracks, but to me the highlight is Blacklight Machine, which has this incredible instrumental section towards the second half, and then Million Town, the title track, which is just this excellent 26-minute epic that just goes nonstop and has so many beautiful, exciting, balls to the walls moments throughout the whole entire listen through. And it's just a fantastic record that has always struck me as something special. And I was really blown away by it. I think it came out at a time where I was looking for something a bit newer and fresher in my music, and this really scratched an itch in a big way, and they've become one of my favorite bands ever since. I think every one of their releases is special and has a lot to offer, so I had to put this on the list. It's a beautiful record, one of the highlights in modern prog that I think everyone should check out at least once to get that experience with. All right, next at number 22, I have Big Big Train's Folklore. Big Big Train, it's no secret that they're one of my favorite bands, and I think they hit it out of the park with Folklore from 2016, crossover prog from the UK. The lineup is David Lungden, of course, who unfortunately has passed away since, Dave Gregory on guitars, Andy Poole, acoustic guitar, mandolin, keyboards, backing vocals, Rickard Soderblom on keyboards, guitars, accordion, backing vocals, Danny Manners on keyboards, Rachel Hall on violin. We've got Greg Sponton, of course, on bass, and Nick DiVirgilio on drums. And it's just a beautiful record, mature, and just every track is just so sumptuous and gorgeous. They really beef out these arrangements and orchestrations and talk about some really fascinating subject matter about, like, the English countryside and about history, and all these beautiful elements all come together in a record that just has always impressed me and I think is worthy to call one of their best. I love London Plain that comes early in the record, Along the Ridgeway, Salisbury Giant, Transit of Venus Across the Sun is just gorgeous and beautiful. Winky is one of the most underrated fun tracks from the band that has a really cool fun beat to it. Brooklands is just gorgeous. It's one of my favorite epics from the band, and ends with kind of a nice little ditty called Telling the Bees. It's a beautiful collaboration from the group members. I think there's a lot of David Lungden's heart into this record, and Greg Sponton really contributes a lot as well in the writing, and it's just an excellent record that's up to the tops of modern progressive rock. I believe you could place this, next with like Genesis and Yes Records. I think it's along those same lines of just brilliant musicianship, brilliant songwriting, and they really evoke a certain spirit that I just really respect and appreciate. So Folklore comes onto my list at number 22. And the last one for today, we're talking about another one of my favorite artists. It's Fido and the album Doomsday Afternoon. Hopefully this will come out on vinyl next year. I hear that there's a good chance of that, so I can get a cool vinyl copy. But for now, I'll rock my CD version. Fido, Doomsday Afternoon, this came out in 2007, crossover prog from the US. Fido's one of my favorite musicians, geniuses, musical artists, and he really crafted something special here. To me, this is like his breakthrough album. This is the one that got me into him. And honestly, it's one that's kind of a grower. I didn't really get it at first listen. It took a little bit of listening to kind of uncover the layers and figure it out. And I had it in my car, I remember, back when it came out, like for months. And I was like, I know there's something here. There's something cool, but I can't quite unlock it. And once it unlocked, boom, I loved it and listened to it nonstop, and it was just an obsession for a while. And I love his subsequent records from this point forward. So he has a new one out, Automoto Animus, which is also a lot of fun. But this one's a bit more proggy and conceptual, and the pieces all kind of like blend together and create this big epic piece of music. Very, quirky and different in his subject matter and the lyrics and such, but has this very classic prog sensibility with bits of Genesis, with bits of Jethro Tull, all of those classic influences coming to fruition on an incredible record that's structured very well, that has some great playing, has some like female vocals from time to time from Valerie Gracious, and just a really great style to it that I've always loved. And I think this launched like his prog career from my perspective. I know he had several albums before this, but this is really where he got embraced by the prog community in a big way, and I've always loved this record. So there you have it. Those are the records from 30 to 21. Hopefully you liked this list, and really excited to be able to talk about them with you. So next episode, we'll be getting into numbers 20 through 11, so we're jetting through this countdown pretty quickly. Let me know in the comments how you feel about these records, what would have made your list perhaps, and just any thoughts in general about the channel and about this series, and what you might like to see in the future if I did more of these kinds of episodes. So thank you guys once again for joining me. Hopefully you've been enjoying these like I have. It's been a joy to just relive and talk about these records and what they mean to me. So thank you guys. Be kind in the comments as usual, and I'll hopefully catch you guys in a future episode. Bye everybody. Enjoy the music.